Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own. So in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Welcome to the show and Happy New Year. I am so glad you chose to spend some time here. If you like what you're hearing on Girls Talking Life, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your shows. Then every other Monday when a new episode is released, it automatically updates for you and you don't have to go looking for it. I hope your new year is off to a great start. I mentioned in this episode that I'm not really a resolutions person, and I say that because to me resolutions are these big lofty changes that never really stick. But what I do like to do is look back over the past year and celebrate all the good things. For example, my daughters were both baptized this summer. How fantastic! I also like to take a look at what worked for me personally or for my family, and I like to look at what didn't work and then make a plan or a goal to do something differently in the new year. Today begins our Women's Wellness series, and I think we all want to be well, right? Whether you're a resolutions maker, a goal setter, or just want to live better today than you did yesterday, you're going to love this show. My guest for episode 30 is Kara Osborne. Kara is sharing her story about the unexpected journey the Lord took her on of learning how to live well for His glory. Today, Kara and I talk about her leaving her job to start her fitness ministry and how it was just about her taking the next step and obeying and trusting in God's provision. She tells us that it wasn't easy or always pretty, but because the Lord was faithful to her again and again, she is able to encourage other women to trust Him too. Kara talks about her continuous cycle of jumping in and starting new plan after new plan and thinking that that was the one that was going to bring her lasting hope and satisfaction, but how it never did. And then she shares her light bulb moment when she gained the insight that God had given her her body as a gift, and it was her job to steward it well. Kara also dives in and tells us about the good enough lifestyle, which I love. Everything we talk about today can be found in the show notes for this episode on girlstalkinglife.com. Here is my conversation with Kara. Hi, Kara. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I am so excited to talk to you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I know you, but you don't know me because you have come into my living room as a Rev Well instructor.
Yeah.
I've done classes with you and you were one of my favorites.
Oh, that's so fun. Thank you.
And then when I found out that you have this whole other ministry where you encourage women in their faith and their fitness, I really wanted to have you on. So thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks. That's so fun. When we film those workouts, we never know, who's on the other side of the screen. So it's so fun to hear who's watching and doing those with us. It's awesome.
Right. And that is such a great organization. I'm such a huge fan. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you spend your days.
Yeah. So my name is Kara Osborne. I live in North Carolina with my husband and my two children. They're 9 and 11. So we have entered into the whole preteen.
Yes. Boys or girls?
Phase of life. I have one of each. My daughter's 11. And my son is 9.
So I have two girls that are 9 and 12. So I'm right there with you, Kara.
Yes, you're right there. Man, it's a whole new world.
Wow.
It's a whole new world. So we're figuring it out day by day. I have learned my daughter does not like when I talk about her
okay.
on the internet anymore.
That's all we have to say.
No more blogging or posting about, her stuff because it's her story. So
yeah.
Okay. So I am a former school counselor. I was loving my job and planned to do that for forever. And the Lord kind of interrupted my plans and took me on a journey learning how to live well for His glory. Back in 2013, I had started yet again another plan to get healthy, to lose weight. That was my constant cycle, as I would jump in and try a new plan and think that it was going to be the thing that would bring lasting hope and satisfaction. And it never was. And so the beginning of January 2013, the Lord interrupted me and basically said, let me teach you what it looks like to live well for my glory in that years.
Yeah.
And so I spent a year allowing him to teach me. And I thought I was done at that point. And then he said, well, now I want you to teach other people. And so I tentatively and hesitantly took some steps forward into that and formed a ministry at that point called Wellness Fitness, where I blogged. This was back in 2014 when blogging was really big. So I blogged the things he was teaching me along the way. And that grew. And once that grew, I found Revelation Wellness, which you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I went through and was certified as an instructor with them, and I started teaching local classes. And those grew really quickly, which eventually turned into an online membership community to the point that I left my work. The Lord kind of said, will you trust me with this thing and step forward in faith? And so back in 2015, it became my full-time work was to lead, teach, equip, and love women into places in their health and wellness journeys for the Lord's glory. So I've been doing that since then. I do that through the membership community I mentioned. It's called the At Home Tribe. I also still teach local classes. I just launched a podcast this week called In It With You.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's been so fun. My hope is just to encourage women right where they are to boldly obey the Lord wherever He's calling them, even if it's not quite what you thought it would look like. So
Yes.
I'm pretty big in offer up what you have, even if it's not perfect yet. And so that's how I spend my days and my time is hopefully equipping and training women to move forward for His glory.
Okay. Well, I love that. And I love your obedience and all that.
Yeah.
Was it as easy as you make it sound?
No, it was not. I will say it's been amazing. Like the adventure has been amazing. But as with anything, it's scary. It's scary when you step forward. It's hard putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And the Lord has trained my obedience in painful places over the last 5 years, but He's proven Himself faithful again and again. And every time He's made me willing to take that next step, He makes me stronger to take the next one. And so it's been so fun to look back and say, oh, this is what the Lord did for me. And then be able to say to others, women and men, but particularly I feel called to women, to say to other women, if He was this faithful before, He'll be faithful again. And if He calls you, He'll provide for you as well. So I can remember early on saying to my husband, what are we doing? Like I left my job and how does this make sense? And what are we going to do? And how am I going to earn income? Because I felt like I needed to contribute, right?
Yeah.
All those expectations. And I just remember him being so kind. His spiritual gift is faith. And he said, the Lord's going to work it out. The Lord's going to work it out. And He did. And I'm here just to say that He will provide what we need when we're willing to step forward. But it doesn't always look neat and tidy. That's for sure.
Yeah. What a fantastic message of faith and truth there.
Yeah.
Love that. So, Kara, this episode will be part of my Women's Wellness series at the beginning of 2020. So Happy New Year to you.
Yes. I love that.
And I feel like I'm not a resolutions kind of person. I love to look back and see what worked and what didn't work and then kind of make a plan to move forward. But I feel like health is definitely always one of those topics that comes up at this time of year. Mm-hmm. Are you a resolutions person?
I am such a resolutions person. I love a new goal. I love a new month, a new year. I get really into it. Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of goals or what are you talking to your community about for 2020?
Well, this is the perfect time for me to sort of give you a light bulb moment that I had along the way. And maybe that's going to propel your listeners a bit as well. So I mentioned back in 2013 when I had this shift and when the Lord kind of showed me to go a different direction. And part of that was this moment where I'm standing at my kitchen sink. And my kids were little at this point and they're in the other room. And I was doing what I often do. And maybe some of your listeners do too, but I was self-medicating with food, right? It had been a stressful day. It was hard. It was getting ready to be the new year. So you have all the Christmas goodies and cookies around. And I was eating, I think it was a Snickers bar at the time. It's my favorite, right? I'm eating the Snickers bar, but I'm hiding it from my kids because I know it's not for their good, right? But yet here I am doing it myself. And I look up and my daughter had made me like a it was like a little doll almost. It was this big like Play-Doh head and this plastic tube for its body. And she'd made little clothes. And to anyone else, it would have been shockingly ugly. It just wasn't cute, right? But she made it for me because she loves me, and she presented it to me with great delight and joy. And I took that little doll and I proudly displayed it on my kitchen, the window above my kitchen sink, not because it was beautiful, but because the way I felt about the person who had given it to me. Because I loved my daughter, I wanted to cherish and take care of the things she had made me. And I had this moment where I thought, oh my word, it's this same thing with my health. I might not look at this physical shell and think, oh, this is exactly what I would have selected. This is the way I would have wanted to look. It's nothing like that. But I do love the giver of the gift. And the Lord has given me this physical body for the mission He has set me on. And even if I don't love the container right now in that moment, I love the gift giver enough that I should want to steward it well. And that was kind of the shift for me. And so I think as your listeners are entering into a new year, if they could reframe their perspective a bit, I want everybody to get to the point where they can say, I love what the Lord has called me to be, what the Lord's created me to be. Yeah. But more than that, I want them to realize that their very self was a good gift from a good Father who loves them. And because we love Him right back, we can choose to take care of it and to honor the body we've been given.
So it's not about losing weight to lose weight and counting calories or inches, or there's a much deeper reason if we're followers of Jesus.
Right. And I think anytime we make it about those temporary indicators, it doesn't stick. At least for me, it doesn't. It might for a while, but it's never going to sustain. And so I try to really encourage my ladies and others to drill down a bit and say, what is your why? Like, what's the reason that's propelling you towards wanting to live healthier? And then when you give an answer to that, I want you to next ask, so what? And drill down a little bit further. And then when you get that answer, I want you to say, so what? And for most of us, I try to say that we are going to live well. We're going to eat well. We're going to move well because we want to love well. And love is heavy. With Revelation Wellness, we say it all the time. Love is heavy, and I want to be ready to love well. And so the way that I'm taking care of myself is literally going to determine the quality with which I'm able to love other people. So it's a bigger urgency when you think about it in those terms.
Yeah. And I know for me, having two daughters, I'm always really super careful about how I present something to them. We've had people in our lives that say, I'm on a diet and this is what I need to do. And I kind of say, no. That's not what I want my girls to hear.
Absolutely.
Anything I'm doing is to make my body stronger, to make my, my heart healthier. So I can do what God has called me to do.
Yeah, I think the way we speak about body image and identity all the time is important, but especially when we have children that are around us and are listening. When I first started Wellness Witness, I was talking about health and wellness all the time. And confession, I sort of lost my way a little bit early on. It became very much about the health and the fitness, and I lost my focus a little bit. And so it's possible back then that I was speaking about nutrition and recipes and protein a lot. But my daughter was 5 at the time, and we were sitting at the kitchen table on a Sunday after church at lunch, and she folded her hands and matter-of-factly looked at me and said, I will not be eating lunch today. I am on a diet. So here I am trying to teach other women what it looks like to steward their health well for God's glory. And the enemy had come after the heart of my 5-year-old right in my home. And so it was this new perspective shift and wake up call for me. Anytime we talk about our bodies or anytime we talk about the way we're eating, I try to always use the language of how can we fuel well today? What's going to make us feel better as we go forward? Or when we're talking about a pair of clothing that may not fit, a pair of pants that won't fit, I'll say something like, look how strong and healthy you're becoming, right? Or the Lord's given you legs that are able to serve, or you've got feet that are growing so that you can go. But I'm trying to reshift. I'm trying to reprogram the way I speak about their bodies as well as the way I speak about my own. And that's been a conscious effort. And sometimes we get it wrong, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes we get it wrong,
absolutely.
but we try again. We try again.
We mentioned Revelation Wellness already. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
So Revelation Wellness uses fitness as a tool to spread the gospel. At its core, our hope is that we are equipping others to go forward. And to do that, we train instructors, which is actually how I came to know the ministry. I was part of Platoon 10 and was trained as a Revelation Wellness instructor at that point. Since then, I have become added to their staff. So I work as an enrollment advisor who helps sign up other people who are feeling the call towards training, as well as a lead instructor. And so I get to help train those that come through their instructor training program. Our hope is that men and women come through, find true freedom, and then go back into their own communities and spread it to those around them. We believe that a free man or woman can't help but want to free other men and women. And so we equip you and train you to do that, sometimes undercover as a fitness instructor. People will come to a fitness class that maybe would not ever come to your church. People will come to a fitness class that maybe would never come to a Bible study. Yeah. And so we believe that we create relationships and love people really well. And sometimes that gives us the opportunity to speak truth to them about the Lord and about what Jesus has done on their behalf.
I love that. What does it look like to be an instructor?
It looks a million different ways. There is no one way, which is interesting because most certification programs, when you go through their training program, they have a designed way you implement. Rev, we use rev as a verb, and we say you can rev wherever you are and you can rev wherever you go. And that might look like a traditional fitness class. It might look like kickboxing. It might look like a walking group. It might look like aqua aerobics or senior seated fitness. Or it might just look like the way you speak hope and life over the woman beside you in the grocery store checkout line. There's not one way that we implement that. Our hope is that through our training program, you really get a full picture of your original design, who the Lord has created and called you to be. And then you walk forward in that, which impacts every facet of your life and then impacts the people around you. So it could look a billion different ways, and we hope it does.
You talk about the good enough lifestyle. What does that mean, Kara?
Okay, so for people who might be natured like me, originally left to myself, I think that things have to be perfect before I do anything.
Yes, I can relate to that.
Yes, right? So we spend a lot of time and energy and effort trying to get everything exactly right before we will ever mobilize or do anything. And what I found is that I was staying crippled by this fear of not doing it right to where I wasn't obeying or moving forward. With my husband, we call it analysis paralysis because he does the same thing. So we analyze and we wait and we strive and we plan, but we never actually do the thing because we spend all our time trying to make sure it's right. And so I just decided a few years ago, I was done with that and I was going to move forward even if it wasn't quite right. And once I started doing that, I found such delight and freedom, which sounds crazy, but by really just authentically owning that this might be a bit of a mess, but I'm still going to move forward, I got bolder and I got braver. And the best part is other people did too. So when I was willing to say, I'm giving you what I've got, it's good enough, they show up for it. For example, in my membership community, I started off using my little iPhone and filming these pitiful little videos right in my living room. And I would put them in a Word document and sell them as a PDF month to month. It was a pitiful, really, like looking back, I'm like, that is embarrassing that I ever did that. But it was what I had at the time. I used what I had. I moved forward and the Lord was like, good job. Now take another step. Right. And then he gave me what I needed for that. Another relatable example, maybe for your listeners, is sometimes we have the goal that we want to drink more water, right? That may be a goal that some of your listeners have. So we think, okay, I'm going to drink more water. I need a plan for how I'm going to drink more water.
I need to get the cup.
That's exactly where I was going. I need the perfect water bottle. I have to decide, do they say that it's better to have a straw or not a straw? And does it need to be stainless steel? Or how many ounces does it need to have? I need to download an app that's going to help me track it. And I need to print out a water drinking tracker. And we do all these things, but what we actually don't do is just take a cup out of the cabinet and drink some water, right? And so I've just learned good enough for me is a sustainable approach to healthy living with our health journey, yes, but also just in general.
Yeah.
Like just because you don't know everything doesn't mean that you don't know something. Just because you can't do it all doesn't mean that you shouldn't do something. So good enough is giving yourself freedom to say, I'm going to give you what I have and I'm going to leave the rest up to the Lord.
That's so good, Kara. And I found myself in that place many times.
Yes.
Yeah. I would still be, researching the water bottles.
Right. That's right. Yeah. We overcomplicate.
Hey there, I'm going to interrupt just for a second to bring you today's sponsor. Did you know that every day women in the US are exposed to more than 168 toxic chemicals? Manufacturers of many products use toxic chemicals because they're cheaper, toxins last longer, and the US doesn't have strong regulations on personal and home care products. So I want to tell you about Pure Haven. Pure Haven is the maker of fresh, safe personal home care products. Their mission is to educate consumers about pure, safe, alternative personal care choices that empower people to live the healthiest lifestyle possible. I've been using Pure Haven products for years now, and I love that I can use their products on myself and my kids without worrying about the ingredients. I learned of Pure Haven from my friend Jessica, who was a guest all the way back on episode 10. She shares her story of making the switch to healthier products for her family, so go back and give that episode a listen if you'd like to hear more. If you are wanting to make safer product choices this year, I highly recommend Pure Haven. I know it can be overwhelming to know where to start, so just pick one product and then continue to replace things one at a time as you run out of what you're using. That's how I did it. I started with their Dream Cream because who doesn't want a great smelling multi-purpose skin cream? And then when I ran out of my deodorant, I switched to Pure Haven's deodorant. And just like that, little by little, I've been able to stock my home with safe, non-toxic products. Go to purehaven.com/girlstalkinglife to view their whole line and to shop now. Back to my conversation with Kara. What would you say to the woman who has not done a whole lot of fitness training?
Mm-hmm.
She is just kind of rounding the new year and thinking, this is the year where I'm going to start moving. What would you tell her?
Yeah, I would say start where you are and use what you have. I would say to her, do not feel like you have to change everything right now. You did not get to where you are overnight, and you're not going to leave the place you are overnight. I would say to her, every time you take a step forward, you're getting a little bit stronger to do it the next time. And that 3 steps forward and 2 steps back is still 1 step forward. I would say to her that you probably are going to fall off track along the way, but that can be an opportunity to grow and get better. What happens a lot of times is we set off with these really intense plans. Like, yes, I'm going to do a whole 30, but yet you've only eaten junk for the last 15 years. That's a big jump. For some people, they'll say, well, I'm doing a sugar detox for 21 days, or I'm going to exercise every day for 90 minutes, but you haven't done anything for 10 years. I think we set these goals that are really hard to achieve. And then when we don't do it, we throw in the towel and we say, oh, well, I couldn't do it. I'll start again next. It could be week. It could be month. For a lot of us, when we're recording this right now in December, we'll say, I'll start again on January 1st, right? We think that because we've already made a mistake, we need to just stop and wait for some arbitrary date in the future to begin again with a clean slate. Yeah. But the Lord is actually saying to you, you could make the next right choice right now. Like, what's the next right thing you could do? So the main way I teach my tribe ladies is start with a habit that you want to implement and get really good at that one habit, then build on a second habit. I'm not really big in total lifestyle overhaul all at one time, because for 99% of the women I have worked with, it is not sustainable and it does not lead to freedom. So I would say to her, ask the Lord, what's the main thing he's calling you to first? And then once you figure out what that one thing is, practice it and get good at it. Then add in another. It is not a sprint. It's going to be a marathon, and it's going to take time, longer than you hope it will, but eventually it will pay off. You keep going habit by habit.
And that first step is going to look different for everybody.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And the more time we spend looking at how other people around us are doing it, the more confused we get. So let the Lord lead you in that. Like, ask him. He really will tell you or give you an idea of the direction you need to go. So do it in his strength, not with someone else's plan, which sounds crazy for me to say that to you, since I'm a woman who runs a community where I give you a plan. But ultimately, I want you to obey the Lord in that. Ask him and then obey what he says.
Yeah, that's such good advice. Kind of on the inverse, what would you tell someone who's been working out for a while, who is into fitness and wellness, and they're just kind of bored?
Yeah.
How do you switch it up, and what do you do to make things fresh and exciting again?
I think the traditional advice that someone would give you there who's in the fitness industry would say, try a new format. But I think for me, I'd give you a different answer here. And I'd say, go back to the joy of movement. If you've ever been one who's able to exercise and be active, and then all of a sudden you have a broken leg, or you have the flu, or you have something else where you're not able to move, I think you realize the gift of what you had before. So could you go back to just the gratitude, the joy of being able to move? I try to use the phrase often of delighted discipline. And that's where I choose to take delight in the things that I know are for my good. I don't always want to exercise. Like, it's never this thing where I'm like, I can't wait to move my body today. For me, it's not. But I know that He has taught me disciplined living in the way I choose to move and the way I choose to eat is best for me to love well. Like we spoke about earlier, I've learned to delight in the discipline of that. In our society, discipline is seen with a really negative connotation, but I actually think it's a good thing that His boundaries are for our good, that when we choose to exercise the discipline He's shown us is best in our lives, there's blessing there. So yes, some days they may be like, I love working out and I can't wait. But there's also days where you're going to say, Lord, I love you and you've called me to live and love well. So I'm going to do this as an act of obedience. And delight comes in that. It does. There's never been a time I have started a workout and once I've gotten done, been like, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But
Absolutely.
almost every time before I begin, I don't want to do that. Right. So delighted discipline and just a perspective of gratitude for being able to move. I try to tell my ladies, like, it's a gift. If you're moving today, it's a gift. And so just that perspective helps.
Okay. We've talked, or you've mentioned finding freedom. What are the first steps to doing that?
I think you recalibrate your goals again, kind of like we talked about earlier. If your goal is a temporary indicator, like a goal weight, a goal pair of pants, those things, those are good. I'm not even saying to you that those are bad, because I think for some of us, we need tangible measurements. And sometimes our obedience gives us the ability to track. I just think there are people who that is the best thing for them. That's a discipline that's good for them. But for a lot of us, we go back to our intentions and what exactly we're pursuing. Freedom comes in something that feels sustainable. And so for me, it just took day by day of making choices that pushed me closer to where the Lord was telling me I needed to be, but not having to strong arm or white knuckle my way into someone else's plan. I'm 6 years down the road now. And I think if I'm being really honest with you, I'd tell you it's still not easy. I wrote a book called Finally Free back in 2016. And I almost felt like I needed to write another one last year and to say, like, just kidding. No, I'm not. Right. Because freedom for me, it's a continual renewing of the mind. It's a continual saying, I will not go back to a place of bondage, to the way my body looks, to those same identity struggles we spoke about briefly earlier. It's a continual renewing of the mind. It's a continual surrender. Freedom is surrender. It looks like open hands. And so I have to recalibrate often and say, Lord, remind me what it is you've called me to. I think freedom might look different for each person. So I have to be careful with the way I describe it. But the hope eventually is that for all of us, we learn there's a better way than being chained to any of those temporary indicators we talked about. I don't think she'd mind me sharing this, but I had a tribe member yesterday who posted in our group, and she said, the last few months, I have felt stronger than ever before. And she said, my clothes fit. They haven't fit in a long time. My workouts are better. My mental health is better. My emotional health is better. Like, she was just really listing out how she was feeling. And then she said, I had a doctor's appointment yesterday and mistakenly saw the number on the scale. So she's a woman who doesn't choose to look at that number, which I can appreciate that. And that's her best. Yes. But she saw the number and it was way higher than she anticipated. And she said immediately she started having feelings of, who are you to think that you're healthy? What do you mean you're stronger than ever before? Look,
all those other things were disqualified.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so she went home and she said, I sat with that. And the Lord reminded me, freedom looks like living well. Freedom looks like the fact that she's moving her body every day, that her workouts are stronger, that she's lifting more, that clothes are fitting that didn't before. And that has nothing to do with the number on the scale that she saw. So I think it's finding freedom from whatever the thing is you've attached your hope to in the past.
You've mentioned your at-home tribe. What does that look like? And what would someone get if they were to be a member?
So the at-home tribe, there's two options. There's one that's called Tribe Light, and it's just faith-based workouts. People can join that at any point. I have about 200 workouts available. It's $10 a month right now at the time of recording this, but they just log on and they have access to all different formats and workouts, and those are there for them. My pride and joy, the community that I'm so grateful the Lord's created is I call it the all access membership, but it's a community of women who are determined to live well for His glory. And so that includes content such as workouts. It includes content such as nutrition, but it also includes a private community group where those ladies share their stuff, which is really beautiful. They kind of walk through life virtually together. It looks like accountability partners. It looks like Bible study. It looks like weekly emails where I train them in different resources and topics. And we do a little bit of menu planning and meal prepping and those things. But really it's women who were trying to get well, not just in our health, but also our hearts and our homes. Our hope is that we are discipling women into loving the people around them better. And so that's been so fun to watch. This year we hit about 460 women, and they were international, mainly in the US, but all around the world, which was so fun.
That's so
exciting. And I watched them minister to one another, virtually. So it's been just the biggest blessing. It started off as that little Word document I mentioned earlier, where it was just YouTube links on a Word document. And it's grown into just this beautiful community of women. I serve with a team of leaders, and they all serve in their own giftings for the ways they've been called to lead. And that might look like prayer calls or monthly teachings or all kinds of different resources we provide. But I believe we need community. And I wish that all of us had that community face to face with us. But a lot of us don't. And so this virtual community meets a need in their lives to be discipled by women who love the Lord and want to see one another not just feel better, but get better.
I love that it's multifaceted. It is not just fitness. It's not just food, but you're targeting their hearts.
Yeah. I would say probably maybe as high as 30 or 40% of the women in there never even use the workout content. They just want the heart training. We have different themes each month, and they kind of walk through those together. In November, we did no lack. And so that was talking about competition with other women. And December is prepare him room. And January is the journey begins. And so we create content around those themes, which has been really fun to watch. And that one right now currently is $15 a month.
Okay. Tell me about your new podcast.
Oh, it's so exciting. Okay. So I've known for years I was supposed to do a podcast, but it was pride. It was pride of when I said no, because I felt like I was too late, that other people had done it and the market was flooded, and it was pride. I just didn't want to jump in late. I felt like I'd missed that boat. And one of the messages I tell my ladies all the time is that you have something to say. If the Lord has called you, there are people around you who need you to obediently do it, so that He can be made known in those ways. And I always tell them that they're not too far gone, and they're not too broken, and they're not too slow or too old or any of those disqualifying factors.
Yeah, you're not too late.
Right. And so I'm teaching them this, and then I'm like, oh man, I think I'm talking to me too. And so we do these things called 5-minute scripture resets with the tribe ladies, where I'll read a verse and just prompt them through journaling questions. So I've been doing that, trying to do it through a video format, and it's not conducive to that whatsoever. And so I was like, I need an audio way to do it. I'll just try to do a podcast privately for them. And then I thought, this is a tool that could bless other people. And so I agreed and decided to say yes to the Lord. And so I'm calling it In It With You, and it'll be twofold. Half the episodes will be me giving encouragement and pep talks in the hard places in life to let you know that you're not alone, and that when we obey, the Lord does really great things. And then the other half of that will be those 5-minute scripture resets, which will hopefully be a place for men and women to just push play and reset in the middle of their day using the Word of God. So far I've launched my introduction episode, but in January, I've got 5 more that'll be coming, and then they'll drop weekly after that. Such a privilege to be able to be in people's ears as they're going about their normal lives, and to be able to hopefully speak some life and some hope into them.
Yeah, I completely agree. That sounds really great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
At the end, Kara, I love to ask for my guest's favorite 5. What are you loving, reading, doing, watching right now that are your favorites?
Yeah. Okay. So I thought about this ahead of time so that I would not, so that would not be a dud, but I still feel like my answers are not super exciting, but I am loving my electric blanket. I have a heating pad on the bottom and an electric blanket on the top. And I heat myself like a burrito. My husband will come upstairs, at night to go to bed, and it's just on my side of the bed. I have a twin size, blanket. Like, okay, mama, you all heat it up.
Now, do you sleep all night like that?
No, I turn them off once I go, I like to tuck into the covers when they're nice and warm. So it's not super cold here in North Carolina, but I get really cold. So I am loving that. The second thing is I have this little handheld frother that I use in the mornings in my coffee. The one I use is made by Mom Sanity. You can get it on Amazon or anywhere, but it's like this little hand power thing. I put a little bit of half and half in my coffee cup, and then I use this little wand, and it makes the most delightful frothy foam. And I feel like I'm having a latte every day at home when I drink it. So that's been amazing.
That's great, because I want to do that sometimes, but I don't want to dirty my blender. That's a whole process. So that sounds great.
Yes, you can once you're done with it, you just tap it under, the water and give it a little spin, and you're done. And it has a little stand, so it stays by my sink all the time. And it's like $14. It's super cheap. So It's been a win. Amazon, you can get one there. The third thing is I'm really into Christmas everything. And I know this is coming out in January, but I had to add it to my list. I love Christmas shirts. I love Christmas music. I love Christmas decorations. I love Christmas workouts. So that's what my ladies are all doing right now in my local classes.
Do you leave your stuff up way beyond Christmas?
No, this sounds strange, but as soon as Christmas is done, I am done. I put it up really early, but I think I almost get depressed when Christmas is over. And so I just want the reminders of it gone because it's over. So the past several years, I've taken it down Christmas night, but then I go into this big depression. We might wait a day or two this year. The fourth thing I put down is we have spent multiple times over the years trying to do family devotions. And they're never what I expect them to be, ever, right? You have this picture in your head of how wonderful it's going to be.
Yes.
And it's always chaos. But we are doing Ann Voskamp's Christmas study. I think it's the greatest gift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, my kids are finally to the age where we're having legitimate discussions with them each night. And so we take turns reading, and then there's questions at the end, and they're actually applying it to their lives and telling us about situations from school. And
that's
great. It feels like this amazing payoff after years and years of it being quite chaotic. So I'm loving the intentionality of that right now. We're only on day 5, so we'll see. But
there is grace if you miss.
Yes,
yeah, if they all don't look so lovely.
That's right. And just the practice of it is worth pursuing, right? Even when it doesn't come together. And then the fifth one I wrote down is Jess Connolly released a book called You're the Girl for the Job. And I've read it already, but I just keep going back to it. It is an anthem for anybody who's questioning where they're being called and where they're being sent, and encouraging you to step forward into those places. So it's just a girl after my own heart in the ways that she's championing and equipping women to step forward.
I have that book.
Yes. Have you read it yet?
Chapter 1. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. She has a podcast too. It's Go and Tell Gals. That's so good. So good.
I'm excited to dig in. Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah. Yes.
Kara, where can people find you?
Okay. So I'm on social media, Facebook and Instagram. It's at Wellness Witness. I also have a website, wellnesswitness.com. The podcast is on all the major podcast players, and that you can just search for In It With You. Or you can find that information just on my main website. And then if you're interested in the tribe, that is at hometribe.com is where you can find that information.
Okay. Any last ideas or thoughts for people and goals in the new year?
Okay. So for anyone listening, I just want to encourage you that you are not too old. You are not too broken. You are not too far gone. You are not too out of shape. And the Lord wants to use you this year. More than that, the Lord wants you to know him in new ways this year. And so wherever you find yourself beginning the journey, just take the next step. And if you're not quite sure what that is, you can stop and you can ask him and then try again. He wants to teach you new things this year. And you will do it more by your surrender than you will by your striving. So obediently step forward and then let him teach you and show you where to go next. But he's got great big things ahead for you. And I'm excited to see you step into those and the places that he's sending you.
Thank you, Kara. I love your words. You are so encouraging.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, the way that God has encouraged you and used you. And I'm so encouraged by your obedience. I know that it's been not a smooth road the whole time, and just hearing you talk about that and sharing how you've done it anyway and how you've moved forward and one step at a time. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such a gift to be here and be able to say that. And my hope is that it makes other people bolder to do the same.
Yeah, it does. I feel better just talking to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara.
All right. Bye. Y'all have a good new year.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Kara. She is just a sweet, sweet soul. One of the things that I love about her is her willingness to admit that she's gotten it wrong on occasion, like we all have, and she just tries again. I love, love, love Kara's approach, not only to physical wellness, but to spiritual wellness, and her trust in the Lord is contagious. If you have a goal to get moving this year, check out Kara's At Home Tribe. If Kara's description of a Revelation wellness instructor got your heart beating fast, get in touch with her for more information on that training. Find her at wellnesswitness.com and tune into her new podcast, In It With You. Hey, I would love for you to rate and review the show or tell a friend about it this week. I would love for more women to be encouraged by the stories of my guests. Next time on the show, I am talking with Julie Short. We're going to continue our Women's Wellness series talking about moving to wellness in your Enneagram number. Julie is a higher ed professional. She's the host of the Momnesia podcast, and she's currently working through a training program on the Enneagram. If you don't even know what that is, don't worry. Julie will fill us in next time. Friends, don't let the conversation stop when the show is over. Share your stories and start your own conversations with the girls in your life. Happy New Year. I will see you back here in 2 weeks, and thanks for tuning in.